I said this to Gary Chico directly, and with no disrespect to Rahm Emanuel, who I've never met. Rahm Emanuel is very accomplished. Rahm Emanuel is obviously very rich, and he's a Chicago guy. I get all that. I don't see him as the type of mayor that we've had in Chicago's history. I don't see Rahm Emanuel as a neighborhood guy, like I thought both Daley's were, Jane Byrne, Harold Washington, other people, whereas I see Gary Chico as kind of a man of the people.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, I want to welcome back to the program a special guest.
Hi, Paul Vallas. Good morning to you.
Hold on one second. We're having a little trouble with... Oh, there we go.
Hello?
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
So tell us why you decided to come into town and support your friend Gary Chico.
Well, because I had the pleasure of working under Gary from really 1992 to 2002, first as revenue director, then as budget director, and then, of course, as school chief. And there was nobody more responsible for the prosperity and the success of the city during the 90s in terms of balancing budgets and delivering local services and improving schools than really Gary Chico. People forget that when we took over the Chicago Public Schools in 1995, we had a projected $1.2 billion five-year budget deficit. And, of course, test scores were in the pits. And when we left the district with a $330 million surplus.
Wow.
6 years of improved test scores, 76 new buildings, 350 renovated buildings, 19 additional magnet school and magnet school programs. And it was in large part because of Gary's leadership. And then people forget, they see us as the school guys. They forget that in the mid-'90s, when I became budget director from 93 to 95 and Gary was chief of staff, we put there were over 13,000 police officers on the street. We resurfaced 70% of the city streets. We didn't have to sell city assets to balance our budgets. We left the city with balanced budgets, and Gary played a critical role. I worked with Gary almost daily on city budgets, and obviously almost daily when I was school superintendent on school reform. There's no one more accomplished in this race than Gary Chico. And, as you pointed out, Gary's a neighborhood guy. He knows the neighborhood. He knows the city council. He knows the players. So he's tested. I think he's the perfect candidate to become mayor of the city of Chicago right now.
Now, do you think Mayor Daley is upset at all that you came in to support him, to back Gary Chico?
Oh, quite frankly, I don't care whether Mayor Daley is upset or he's not upset. The bottom line is, I'm going to tell it the way it is. I mean, Gary Chico was critically responsible for the mayor's successes in the 90s. The fact that he's not supporting Gary and supporting him strongly, I think is pretty outrageous. But right now, at this juncture, I'm not, I don't care who I'm irritating. The important thing right now is that for there to be a race, we've almost like, a lot of the pundits out there are almost ordaining the race is done. This is a foregone conclusion. And that's just the way they want to manage the process. They almost want to select the individual who's going to continue to run this city. Well, there needs to be a race, and people need to understand the credentials of these candidates who are in the race. And Gary is deserving of the mayor's praise for what Gary did as chief of staff and what he did as school board president. So I think it's really important. Gary is down in the polls, but remember, he's got 45% name recognition, where the front-running candidate has 95% name recognition. So I think Gary's the man. I think Gary's the perfect candidate, and I want to do my part in drawing attention to Gary's record so people can make an informed decision.
Paul Vallas joining us talking about Gary Chico. Don't you think the next mayor of Chicago, no matter who it is kind of almost destined to fail because there's no money left to spend? Mayor Daley has already spent everything.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, almost the entire municipal property tax goes to finance municipal pensions. I mean, not for cops, not for school, not for rural construction infrastructure, not for healthcare services. I mean, clearly the city has some serious financial problems. So, all the more reason why the next mayor needs to be somebody who has faced tough problems in the past, has experience in municipal management. Gary has that. Now, look, you have to understand. Clearly, the city had problems in the 90s, and Gary was in large part responsible for rescuing the city from those problems and moving the city forward. these problems are more severe than they were in the 90s, but at least you have somebody who has been tested and who has dealt with crisis situations in the past. But there's not a whole lot of room for maneuverability. In order to straighten out the city's finances, everybody's going to have to take a collective reduction in their standard of living, so to speak, when it comes to municipal employees, when it comes to city government. And so you're going to need somebody who's not only experienced in dealing with those crises, but you're going to need somebody who has worked with the city council. You're going to need somebody who knows the local political players. You're going to need somebody who knows the local aldermen and the local community organizations, because you're going to need somebody who's negotiated with the unions in the past, because that's what it's going to take. Everybody's going to have to come together and agree to make some mutual collective sacrifices in order to reduce the cost of government, so we're just not taxing people to death.
I think it's a big boost for Gary Chico to have Paul Vallas backing him. And one thing I noticed yesterday when I saw you on television, you have lost a lot of weight. And I was wondering, what have you changed your diet?
How do you lose weight in New Orleans?
Well, as you know, this is my last year in New Orleans. I'm transitioning out, and they asked me to come for 2 years, or they asked me to stay for 4 years, and so I'm kind of wrapping up my work. But I spent about 45 days in Haiti, working with the government there to come up with a plan to build a functioning school system, and I actually lost about 20 pounds down there.
Wow.
So but it's been an exhilarating experience. The opportunity to really go into situations that are dire and to really try to play a contributor, to try to contribute to the building of something that'll have a long-term benefit on a country, let alone a school district, is something that's very challenging for me. So I have lost a little weight, and I appreciate you noticing. And I had to get all my suits taken in, and in fact, I went to the funeral of a friend the other day, and of course, everybody was who was about my age, and a very, very, very close friend, and I had more people coming up to me asking me how I was feeling. So when you lose that kind of weight, people are going to be surprised.
Take care of yourself.
If they haven't seen you in 10 years.
And happy Thanksgiving, Paul.
Well, happy Thanksgiving to you, and thanks for this opportunity to plug Gary.